What's up, boys? I'm a realistic fishhead and you're watching Disney Channel. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that's kind of important but not really. This is basically the Beyblade equivalent of correcting someone's grammar on the internet, but they teach you the correct grammar first for a reason. So this video is going to be about differences in molds, which is a term that if you've ever tried getting into competitive Beyblade, I'm sure you've heard thrown around a bunch of times. But what exactly is a mold, and what constitutes a mold difference? The answer can be found in one of the WBO's threads created by a user called Junction with 2 C's. This thread defines a mold as essentially a difference of a piece that can fundamentally change its weight, shape, or appearance. And an important thing to note is that in basically all cases, there must be a significant, noticeable physical difference between the two parts for them to be considered different molds. Here are some examples of actual mold differences. In this video here, the Libra on the right is mold 1 and has a more hollow interior with more of its weight around the perimeter. There is a second rare mold that I don't own, but in mold 3 on the left, some of that weight has been shifted to reinforce Libra's interior and effectively nerf its stamina as well. Similarly, there are 3 molds of Earth, the first being incredibly rare due to its short production run because of its fragility. The second mold, shown on the right, addressed some of these issues but still suffered breakages on the 4 outer wings. The third mold, released by Hasbro and shown on the left, reinforced the connection to the wings but also made the center of the wheel where the track is held more brittle. Victory Valkyries' mold history is a lot like Earth's. The first mold, shown here in blue, had an incredible amount of breakage issues due to the bad connection to the 3 wing blades. The second mold, shown in red, added some reinforcement to the wings themselves, but not the connections to them, so it still had some breakage issues. This was finally fixed in the third mold in purple here, which, as far as I know, only has 1 recorded breakage. Lastly, another common mold difference is between the Hasbro and Takara tomy performance tips. You can see here that the Hasbro XF on the right has a much more reinforced connection to the rest of the tip than the TT one on the left. Sometimes, in the case of R2F, these mold changes can occur for no reason. TT's original R2F had a crossbar to hold the rubber tip in place, while Hasbro's first release of it had no such crossbar despite there being a gap for it in the rubber. And Hasbro later released a third mold of R2F with a partial crossbar shown on the right. Now, another important thing to mention is the difference between a mold and what Junction refers to as a variation, which is a subtle, unintentional change in weight, shape, or appearance between 2 instances of a part caused just by natural manufacturing variations. The most infamous of these variations is definitely the bearing drive tip from MFB, where players would claim to have anywhere between a 2-minute or a 7-minute mold of the tip, and even though many years later, significant physical differences were found between several instances of BD, they weren't indicative of the part's performance, and some of the BDs where the differences were found may have been fake. So this means that BD never actually had any confirmed mold differences, only variations. Okay, now this is probably the most important part of the video. Remember in Junction's definition where he states that the part's mold has no bearing on the product code of the part itself? Well, this is technically incorrect, but it's also technically correct, and let me take a minute to mansplain why. So you know how on the WBO, or pretty much any other website, you have a user ID, which is just a number that identifies your account? This number doesn't really exist. It's an imaginary number that's only used by the WBO's internal system to keep track of who is who, and this is the same general concept as the product codes or stars that's printed on Beyblade parts. When these parts are manufactured, the metal and plastic is fitted into the mold machines, which are differentiated by the A1, B1, B3 that you end up seeing on your part. Similarly to the user ID, these codes are just for internal use. This is how the manufacturers keep track of what parts came from what machine, so they can track down things like defects quicker, and they should have no meaning to you as a consumer. The stars are slightly different in the sense that they're also for consumer use as well. Their purpose is to help players identify which disc is theirs in the event of a double burst, but this is just as easily done by marking the part or putting a star sticker on it. So while saying that these constitute different molds of the part isn't technically incorrect because the mold used to shape the part is physically different, what they really are is meta molds, which is a term I just made up now that can be used to describe something that's used to identify a part in a system bigger than itself. So when you see someone saying that their A5 Hell Salamander is better than a B4 one, or a 3-star disc is better than a 2-star one, that could be very true for them, but the difference in performance is due to some other attribute of the part, like weight or tightness of fit, rather than a small product code or star shape that's indented somewhere on it. So that about marks the end of this video. I know that it was long and boring, but thanks for bearing with me if you're still watching. I hope you found the video informative. Hopefully it clears up some of the misunderstanding that a lot of people have about their different parts. Thanks for watching. Realistic Fishhead signing off. See you guys next time. Whoosh.